Hi guys, this is Super Sam Crusher. Welcome to my chess club where I talk about moves, tactics, and ideas to have a great opening, mid, and end game, smashing your opponent with ease. It's time to chess it out. Like I said in the last episode, I'm gonna show you guys how to use sniper in chess. And in this video, I have to show you how to incapacitate your opponent using sniper in chess. So let's get to it. Now for this game, I'm playing as black and my opponent is playing as white. And naturally, if you're playing as white, you have the upper hand in the sense that you can dictate the tempo of the game. And so my opponent started by playing the queen's pawn opening. So I responded with my piece on d5, and then the knight came out, which is a normal move. I had to protect my pawn. He responded again by bringing another pawn on e4 to threaten my pawn on d5. So I had to play my bishop in order to threaten his knight, because I love to do that so much. By the way, anytime I play against an opposition, what I look out for is how to take out the knight as soon as possible, because I know how dangerous knights can be. And then my opponent brought out the second knight in order to add more pressure to his attack and add more pressure to me. So I responded with my pawn on h6. Now this is a very sneaky move, because by having my pawn here, I can prevent the knight from coming to g5, because g5 is a very strong position for the knight. My opponent can easily come on f7 and check both my rook and my queen without any piece threatening it, because in most cases you don't want to move your king too early, so you still have the option to castle. Okay, so it's very important to always have your pawn here to prevent the movement of the knight. So that's one way to incapacitate your opponent too, but this is not a sniper move. We are going to get to the sniper move shortly. So he pushed further by mounting more pressure in attack, and I responded by bringing my queen forward. Now in the position of my queen has the potential to move diagonally to the right hand side of the screen and become a threat. Okay, so that was the main intention. And number two, I'm also trying to create room in order to castle on either side of my king if I need to. So my opponent mounted more pressure by pushing his pawn forward, and this pawn is now a threat to my bishop, right? So I had to capture the knight at this point, because my original intention was to capture the knight anyways. And of course I know the reaction of my opponent to recapture, which he did without failing. So I pushed my queen forward a bit, and he brought in the bishop to protect this piece, because I was going to attack this piece since the piece is vulnerable, and at the same time I'll be putting pressure on the king and the rook. Okay, so he was so smart enough to bring out the bishop to avoid that happening. Now from this position, I had to bring out my knight to create room for my king to castle, and my opponent brought out the queen to add more pressure to his attack. Remember, at this point my opponent is trying to choke me with attack. Okay, so I responded by pushing my knight forward, because this knight can be very, very powerful, and I know from this position my knight is protected because the queen cannot take for fear of recapture. And my opponent decides to bring forward another pawn. That looks like a normal move to me. Then I brought out the second knight to create more room and space. And at this time, my knight is also a threat to his pawn on e5. However, if I do so, his knight on f3 can recapture, and if he does, I can also recapture using my knight on g6. So at the end of the day, I would still be leading in terms of number of pieces captured. So my opponent brought out the second bishop to threaten my pawn on e6 and potentially threaten my knight on d7, and I responded by threatening the king on d3 with my knight on c5. So from this position, my opponent decided to capture my knight and I recaptured. But that move, the knight move, was actually a mistake, right? But then was a happy mistake that turned out to be nice for me at the end of the day. So I recaptured using my queen, and it mounted more pressure by pushing the pawn forward. And at this point in time, I had to capture the pawn because I know my pawn is safe and protected by my queen. So he pushed forward and ready to trade queen. And at this point, I had to look closely and see if it makes sense for me to trade queen this way. But I had to respond by protecting my queen. And the reason why I did this was, if I'd captured his queen on d4, I'm going to create more room for the knight on f3 to recapture, and thereabout to recapture and then gain momentum in attack, because from this position it can easily go anywhere, and that is going to be so dangerous for me. So I had to protect my queen because I want him to take so I can retake, and that will be it. So me doing this, my opponent decided to take because he had no choice. He was so eager to trade queens, I don't know why, and I had to take back with my pawn. And at this stage of the game, my opponent castled, and I moved my rook on the B profile, threatening the bishop. So he decided to protect the bishop with a rook, which is not a bad game, to be honest, from my opponent. Only that my opponent probably didn't know what they call sniper, and that's what I'm about to use now. Call it my little secret, and that can be a cheat for you. So I castled. He pushed his rook on the D profile, and then I had to change the position of my bishop in order to connect my rooks. It is always powerful when your rooks are connected, so at every point in time in your game, try as much as possible to do that early enough. Now in this case, I'm going to use that to my advantage. Okay, so my opponent had to protect the king, because if here I'm going to check the king anytime soon. So he decided to just protect the king well and be rest assured that the king is safe. And so at this point, I also decided to trade rook. So my opponent captured and I recaptured. Nothing too fancy. So at this stage, the bishop of my opponent changed base because my opponent wants to capture my bishop at this point in time. And then I started thinking of what to do, and I did this. I protected the bishop. So if the pawn captures, if the rook captures my bishop, I'm going to recapture using my rook as well. So my opponent mounted more pressure by pushing the pawn forward, and at this point in time, my sniper is ready, like really ready. Gun loaded, sniper taking position, target found, and I'm just ready to pull the trigger, and that's what I'm going to do. So guys, take this part of the video, very important. So this is the sniper. Now if you look across the board closely, you're going to see the knight here on f3, and at the same time, the king is behind. The knight in terms of this diagonal, right, on G2. This simply means that if I capture the knight using my bishop, the king will be on check, and my opponent will have no other option to make any other move other than to recapture using the king or move the king to safety. And if he does that, I'm going to have the clear chance to capture the rook up here. So this is the sniper, right? Okay, so I decided to just use the sniper move, and I captured the knight, checking the king. And at this point, my opponent has no other choice other than to recapture, which he did. And then I had the full opportunity to capture his rook. I could feel my opponent was devastated by this move because he never saw it coming, and that's why I call it the sniper move. You don't see snipers, you only feel it. And God bless you if you feel it, that means you're still alive. So in this case, the rook isn't present on the board to tell the story, so I just captured my opponent's rook using the sniper skill, or the sniper move, whatever you like to call it. So finally, he had to move the bishop, trying to capture my vulnerable pawn on c7, and then I had to check his king. I know at this point he's going to move away from that position, and I would have enough time to protect this rook. This pawn. And so my opponent moved to G2 in order to keep the king safe, and I had to also keep my pawn safe. So my opponent tried to mount more pressure by pushing the pawn forward, although I believe this move was kind of useless because there's nothing this pawn can do actually. And then I changed the position of my rook, hoping to capture this lone pawn here. And my opponent trying to put pressure on me by targeting my knight. Of course, I'm going to change the position of the knight because I don't want to lose my knight at this point of the game. So I had to move it to safety. At the same time, I kept my knight close to his king in order to cause damage at any point in time. So with this, he also pushed the pressure forward with the hopes of developing this pawn someday. And my opponent is also sure that I can't capture with my rook, because if I do, he has his bishop protecting that space. But then I have another plan. I moved my rook to a2, preparing my knight to go on f2, and that's another setup for a sniper. Okay, so on seeing that, my opponent had to create a safe room for the king by pushing his pawn forward, and I think this is a great move by my opponent. But then I went ahead to still set up my sniper by capturing on that with my rook protecting the knight. Now from this position, if my knight leaves this position, it becomes a sniper to any other pawn that is being targeted here. And because my opponent already saw this coming, he had to respond by moving the king to safety once again. But what he missed out on is the bishop on h3, and then I had to take it. And as soon as I did this, my opponent felt so bad and had to resign, and then I won on resignation. So you can see how the sniping move can really help you devastate your opponent, and as a result incapacitate them for you to get your victory easily in chess. So I hope you've learned one or two things from this video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you've not done so, and until next time, Super Sam Crusher is gonna get ya.